Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Fandom Empire Live, Tuesday night, 8:12 p.m. Eastern Time in Ontario, Canada. I'm Sean. Thank you for joining us for another episode of this. I know I said yesterday I didn't know if we'd come on and do another one since we did a show yesterday that went really well, and the show last week went well. And appreciate everybody coming into and on to give their 2 cents on a lot of the Halloween discussion we've had going on lately. And considering the fact that it is now September, and I would say summer's over, but it sure as hell doesn't feel like it outside right now. It's Halloween time, and actually we got some Flixbuster stuff coming up that pertains to Halloween and horror movies over the next 2 months as well. So you'll want to be on the lookout for that. As you see on the screen, the Legacy of Halloween, TikTok. The time is coming. And yes, the Legacy of Halloween, I don't want to put like an exact date on it, but its first video will be this month, and the channel will be officially active. And it'll be something that's going on where you can find short form based content between 5 and 20 minutes long of just various Halloween things. And the first video we're starting with is the inception of Halloween. And tonight, I honestly got the idea for the stream based off of a Twitter thread that I guess an X thread I was reading. And they were having, like, for once, a non-toxic debate. Nobody was saying they're going to kill their dog or run over their mom when they're not looking or anything like that. Because they like a movie that someone else doesn't like. None of that was happening. It was a genuine conversation on would, not how necessarily, but would Halloween H20 have been different if an aging Donald Pleasance had been there and in the movie on its 20th anniversary. And we could talk about how it would have been different, if it would have been different at all as well during the stream. We're looking forward to you guys and gals out there sharing your thoughts on how you think Halloween H20 or even Halloween 7 would have been different if Donald Pleasance was involved. Joining me tonight to mark this wonderful occasion. First up, he's Mean Dean Tommy B. What's going on?
Did you say I'm Dean?
Yeah, Mean Dean. You know, like the dean of a school?
I'm
Mean
not Dean. I'm not Dean Renner.
Dean Renner. Who's that? No, I'm kidding. Dean is Dean has his hands full at that with our lovely the Legacy of Halloween group on Facebook, which is just, you know, full of all sorts of crazy stuff. And you know, I'm sure managing a group of 200,000 people is no cakewalk either. So how you doing though, man? It's a Tuesday night.
I'm hanging in there, you know. It comes, it goes. Looking forward to tonight's episode of Ahsoka. How about you, dude? How things going with you?
They're going. We're here. We're talking some Halloween tonight, and yeah, I too am looking forward to Ahsoka here in a little under an hour's time. I will say this though, for those of you that are in attendance, if you are a Star Wars fan and you are an Ahsoka fan, Tommy, this has literally just happened since we talked. Disney fucked up and spoiled something huge, and it's already spreading like wildfire. So my advice, and the problem is I don't know if it's for this episode or next episode, but they screwed up big, and it wasn't anybody else. It was Disney. Disney fucked up.
Man.
My advice would be to go straight to the episode and don't go looking for things.
Well, can you tell us at least how they spoiled it?
They spoiled it right on Disney Plus.
How did they? Yeah. Never mind. We're not here to talk Star Wars. We're here to talk Halloween.
I know, but hey, when you go to watch the episode, just go to the episode and click play. Do not search around. Don't look too closely at the menu. They fucked up.
I'm sure they'll fix it. I hope
they do, but it's already spreading like wildfire all over X Twitter or whatever you want to call it. Also joining us tonight to talk Halloween, not to talk Star Wars. He's multitasking. He's making terrible fantasy football picks while on here talking about what if. Donald Pleasance.
Dude, my team is sweet. Tom Brady's not on it. It's a winner right out the bat. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I've accepted that he's gone. I'm still hurting for it.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, Donald Pleasance, Dr. Loomis, the possibility Halloween H20. Obviously, that's off the table now, or Halloween 7. But I'm excited to get into this. Yeah, I know I asked you both earlier, but specifically Matt, to come up with an idea, to do some homework on, what would he have thought Loomis's role in Halloween H20 would have been. And I think there's a case for all sorts of different things, guys. But like at the end of the day, we need to remember that Donald Pleasance, even if he had not passed away, was getting up there in age. So it's not like you were going to get a young, spry, hopping on his toes Dr. Loomis in Halloween 7 and or Halloween H20. That was never going to be on the table. But that didn't mean that him being in the film wasn't going to have a massive impact on story, on theme, and just where the movie went. Like, think about that. If they, like, chances are they were still going to do some sort of 20th anniversary film. And let's say they still went back and did the whole 4, 5, and 6 didn't happen. And they were doing something to 2. And Donald Pleasance was still involved. How do you do that? Like, that's key. And I asked the chat tonight, those of you that are with us live, give us your best ideas on what you think would have happened or what you would do even if Donald Pleasance was still alive during Halloween H20 and what Loomis's effect on the movie would have been. I want to make sure there's like no personal information up here that can be stolen. I'm going to pull up my screen here, guys, so we can read some of the stuff. People were kind enough to submit some replies on Facebook when we put the post up there. And I just want to bring that up and see, they might spark some ideas, see what they had here. So I guess we don't need that up, huh? There's no way to go over, eh? It's weird. I don't like the way Facebook does things now. Everybody's got to change shit.
Every week.
Yeah.
It feels like every week.
You can't.
I feel like I'm getting grumpy and stop changing all that shit. Hip nifty kids in your social media platforms, as if kids use Facebook these days.
Let's dive into what some of these replies say. And if you're in the chat now, please post them here in the chat. Save me the hassle of going to Facebook. That would be appreciated. Ron says he'd have known exactly where Michael was headed, would have warned Laurie and the local authorities, would have been blown off, would have saved the day, would have been a nice touch. He likes would have. He's starting everything with a would have. Would have been a nice touch if he told John about the sister he knew. Well, that would have been like this over the top. You thought they erased 4, 5, and 6, but they didn't. And Laurie was actually, screwy enough to do the Anakin Skywalker or the Obi-Wan Kenobi Yoda hiding the twins thing. Maybe they were twins. Maybe John was hid with Laurie and Jamie was left behind to try to split the kids up, which is just stupid. Now that you think about it, it wouldn't have worked. And there would have been so many people nitpicking it. And so I appreciate that one. Matt, when you think about the possibility of Dr. Loomis in Halloween H20, where does it go for you? Because I've been struggling with the question all day, because for me, there's so many different ways the movie could have been different, and dare I say even better had he been involved.
Oh, there's no doubt in hell it would matter with him in it. The question is, like you said, where do you put him? What storyline? And I keep on transplanting my mind to when she likes the gate, and she get ready. It says Michael, but before she says Michael, you see somebody in the shadow walking with a cane, and he says Lori before she said my Lori. And then you hear that voice, and you just know it's him. And the goosebumps he would get off of that scene. And it was like they're together again, fighting him. I mean, I think you still do the scene at the beginning, like with his voice, the voiceover and everything, kind of thing in his office. His office gets ransacked, so they think he's dead, but he's really not. So my mind kept on going to that one scene, and then that's when they bring him in. What about you?
Oh man. So I would envision his screen time probably being similar to the producer's cut of Halloween 6. Mind you, when you think about the actual theatrical cut of Halloween 6, Dr. Loomis isn't in it all that much. He's got a fair amount of screen time in the producer's cut. So you got to look at it from like a technical side too. It can't just be story driven. You have to think, how much could he have worked then, and what could he have realistically done? And for me, I would have kept the opening the same, plays out the exact same, but you don't need a voiceover. Instead of the police, uncovering the house the next day and the office and that we see, you have Loomis get back home, still walking with a cane or whatever, and he goes into the house, and it becomes almost like this chase. So Loomis is trailing behind Michael, and we get some character building pieces, if you will, for him and where his psyche is at now on his way to Hillcrest. And then eventually he gets to Hillcrest. I just think it plays out a little differently, right? And forgive me for saying this, Lori doesn't come across like Superman in the movie, more than likely. I'm not saying she needs to be the damsel in distress either, but I think a lot of people nowadays consider, the Halloween franchise a two-headed monster of Michael Myers and Laurie Strode. But I got to tell you, I know he hasn't been in the movie. Well, that's not true, but Donald Pleasance himself hasn't been in a movie since the mid-90s. I think Dr. Loomis is more important to Halloween than Laurie Strode is. That's just how I feel. Like, I'm sorry, but that's where I am. I know there's people that will live and die by Jamie Lee Curtis, and it's not a anti-Jamie Lee Curtis agenda or anything of the sort. It's simply, I just think those even you look at the first two movies, if you don't have Loomis in those movies, if you don't have Donald Pleasance's portrayal of the Doctor in those movies aren't anywhere near as effective.
They don't work.
I tend to agree with you, man. Like, I'm not saying they wouldn't have been fun popcorn movies, but you're removing an element, not to mention a guy who already had on-screen presence, which is why you had him for so few dates. But like, it would not have worked. And
it's
maybe
like, it's almost like, go ahead.
No, you go.
It's almost like Captain Ahab and the Whale. You think of Captain Ahab and the Whale, you think of Donald Pleasance and Michael Myers. You don't think of Laurie as Captain Ahab. And that's the story. I think the root of the torturous relationship that it is from Michael and Dr. Loomis. That's the story. That's the basis of that story. And it can just continues through 5-6 sequels.
Tommy, how about you, man? For you, I'm sure you haven't seen Halloween H20 a bunch of times, maybe a couple, but do you think that movie drastically changes with Dr. Loomis in it, even in like a supporting role?
I think it could go a number of different ways. I've seen the movie several times.
You said that might have been the first Halloween movie you'd ever seen, right?
No, absolutely
Oh,
not.
okay.
Um,
Well, I was wrong.
one thing that comes to mind is that Loomis could have been in the beginning, and that could have been it. He could have just been killed in the opening scene. That would have been it. Think about it. He's older. We kind of have that in the opening scene where Michael's sneaking around, gets his information he wants. You could have just put Loomis there in that spot, and by doing that, the movie is not drastically altered. The general plot is not drastically altered. I would argue for a movie of this nature and this length, one could argue that does introduce a major character into the film, particularly since he has that role in the franchise. But others might argue that does not make him pivotal. But I think that's kind of in the perspective, case by case basis. Who are you talking to? That's if I'm thinking about how Loomis would appear in H2O, that's the main thing that comes to my mind. You could certainly write in a bigger part for the man if you wanted him to, if you wanted him to have it. But just think about his age by this point. Like he's no spring chicken.
I know people will hate the idea of this, and I would argue that we still have never gotten it. Halloween Kills, I'm not counting that, not because I don't like it. I actually really like Halloween Kills. That being said, sorry. Apologies, I got a distracting text, family thing. Somebody help me out. What was the last thing I said? Apologies, people. It was important. Anybody remember? No. Okay. Anyways, you're talking about 10 to 15 minutes screen time at absolute most for Halloween H2O. He was an old man.
78.
He wasn't going to be, so he would have been in his early 80s. He wasn't going to be all over that movie. And this is what I was going to say. The one thing that they haven't done yet that I'd be open to them doing is going back, doing a period piece somewhere along the lines, whether it's a sequel to 2, a sequel to 4, or a sequel to 1, a different one, is have somebody else play Dr. Loomis in the chasing Michael role. Let someone else play the character. And it's one of the things that pisses me off with Star Wars. Like I get it, the AI shit and the obviously the duplicate face thing. I'm sorry, I'm friggin' struggling to come up with a name here. But the Luke Skywalker stuff that we've seen it with Indiana Jones. If you've seen the new Indiana Jones, there's a flashback sequence. But yeah. Sorry, I'm gonna get rid of my phone, guys. It's a family thing, but it doesn't really concern me. I would be up for someone else playing Sam Loomis.
Who?
I don't have the name. It would have to be someone that you carefully cast. You don't want any Tom, Dick, or Harry playing the role. You'd have to go on a search. You'd want some. One of the things that always kills me is when someone's like, "Oh, well, cast this guy because they look like this person, or cast this girl because they look like that person." And for me, that's not how you do it. You want someone that embodies the character, but also brings a little something else to the character. So I'd be up for that. But when talking about Halloween H2O, we are talking about a character that at absolute most might have gotten 15 minutes of screen time. And even that's being kind of generous. So the impact all depends on how the scenes are written and how the scenes are performed and how you use that screen time. A lot of people forget Darth Vader in Star Wars 1977, 9 minutes. That's it. A 2 hour and 15-minute movie, and he's in the movie for 9 minutes. And yet you left that movie going, oh shit, Darth Vader. Because of how his screen time was used. And I know that's a lot of people's argument for Halloween Ends. They're like, well, Michael was in the movie for 10 minutes. I can watch a Halloween movie where Michael's only in the movie for 10 minutes. It's how you use those 10 minutes is what gets me. Sometimes they can be used effective and sometimes they're not. I want to read a couple more of these and we'll dive a little more into it. Joseph says, correction. They shot a scene mentioning Jamie, but then decided to go away with it and just skip that whole storyline. It'd just be a sequel to 2. So technically John doesn't have a sister, much like 2018. So I don't know about them shooting a scene, but at one point that was absolutely on the table to connect all the movies. But you need to remember, it still would have made Laurie look like not the best person. And I don't know who that got axed, but when you look at it that way, I kind of have a hunch who might have axed that idea. Matt knows where I'm going with that. What else do we have here? One can wonder what a 79-year-old Donald Pleasance would contribute to Halloween H20. I believe he would have been 81 during the filming of it. But yeah, that's no.
He's born in 1919. So you take 90. I mean 90. They were recording. What they made 97.
So he'd be 79 during it. So about 78.
Yeah.
That's still up there, and he's not Harrison Ford 78 either. We got to be realistic here. But yeah, for sure, it would have had to be like honestly, Tommy's whole bit about he could have been killed off at the beginning is absolutely possible, and I know it would have pissed a lot of people off. But in terms of the way the story's structured and the story they went on to tell, maybe a little darker version of it. It felt a little less like Dawson's Creek would have been recommended. But I think that would have absolutely been on the table. It wouldn't have been what I wanted. But it would have been on the table for sure. And I think that
I could live with it.
Yeah, I would think it would depend how it's done. Like if he's, basically 80-year-old Loomis and still going down in a fight and not just caving to Michael on like a back blow to the head, some way that's not rewarding to the character, I could have been okay with it as well. And honestly, then maybe news makes its way to Hillcrest, and maybe Laurie gets like even more, built up with anxiety when they find out, or when she finds out, Dr. Loomis was killed in his home. I would think that'd make the news, considering what happened on the night of Halloween 1978 between Halloween 1 and 2. So Tommy, even though I don't I'll be honest, I fucking hate your idea, dude. Logistically, and given how movies are made nowadays, it's probably the most likely of the three that we've mentioned. It's just the way it works, right? Like, look at Max von Sydow. He gets advertised as a big part of the Force Awakens cast in Star Wars. And everybody can't wait to, see him. Who's he going to be? Is he going to be a different version of Force Ghost Obi-Wan? Is he old Boba Fett? He's Kanan. Is he old Kanan? Nobody knew, and he was dead 2 minutes into the movie. So, yeah, these things happen. Absolutely. But we'll have to. There's no waiting and seeing. But I think I'm not convinced we've seen the last of someone playing Dr. Loomis in Halloween. I'll say that. I'm pretty sure they will revisit the character at some point. In what way and who plays him, though, is left to be determined. Kevin says, I wish he was alive during Resurrection so that he could have accidentally shot Busta. Oh, no, Freddy! Trick or treat, motherfucker. Loomis just turns and intentionally shoots him. Michael, you can have this one. Here's your sacrifice. Oh my god, that character though. And you know what? They had a lot more planned for his character too. Again, if you dove into those Taking Shape books, I don't know if we have Tommy or Matt here right now. Is Tommy's here? Oh, they're just both super still. Scared the shit out of me. Fuck. Thought my internet went out again. I was gonna say no. Ahsoka's tonight.
No.
Yeah, I think people will be surprised how much was planned for Freddy's character. 2 other movies, one that he was very significantly a part of, dare I say, in a bigger, more significant way than he was a part of Halloween Resurrection. It actually would have been him and John Tate in the movie too, so that would have been an interesting spin on a Resurrection sequel. Shauna says the only role I could possibly see him doing is just going to warn them. He'd be too old to actually fight Michael off. He already had bad limp in previous movies, plus his age, not much he could contribute. Physically, I do think he's limited, but I still think he's the stubborn old guy that is going to go out with whatever struggle he can. And again, even him dying at the beginning of the film adds a whole new twist to that movie and what's to come and how is it handled and is it addressed again? And was he able to somehow warn Laurie? You know, I think all those things would have been on the table. But yeah, did the chat come up with anything here? I haven't seen too much of it. Let's see. Alex says he could have in the opening scene with the nurse. I'm assuming Alex means he could have died in the opening scene, like Tommy. Way to go, Tommy! You've started Loomis Diegate.
Yes, because that is a good way to do it. It is a good and valid way to do it.
But we want more. We always want more, right? I think
more doesn't always equal better.
You're right about that. Look at Halloween Ends. It had a impressive long time, and I didn't think it was any better.
Do it less for that one.
Right.
Less.
Dean says, "Oh, Sean, how dare you?" I agree. Byron says H2O would have been better if Dr. Loomis was in it. Sadly, Donald passed away before H2O was a thing. Dr. Loomis and Michael Myers are ties. I don't know Matt, you got anything on that one? Loomis and Myers are Ty's most important characters in the franchise?
Are what most important character in the franchise?
Apparently, I don't know. Byron, you want to let us know what you meant by that, bud? Andy says, that is one thing that I love the most about the Halloween franchise is the back and forth between Loomis and Myers. I thoroughly enjoyed their cat and mouse game. I agree. That's an element of just the storytelling that's not there anymore. Heath, I would have had Dr. Loomis with Tommy, Kara, and Danny, with Danny having issues with the Cult of Thorn and finally deciding they have to track Michael down. By doing this, they meet up with Laurie. Well, that'd be one hell of an interesting conversation to have. Oh yeah, by the way, your daughter was just gutted. Or depending on the story, shot in the head. It's the one thing I don't like about the producer's cut. Jamie's exit is just cringeworthy. Dean Renner kills Loomis off before his name's in the opening screen. Starring Donald Pleasance, but you're not going to see him again. Blame Tommy. It was his idea. I don't know. Like, Tommy, is there a conventional way that anybody could convince you that Loomis would have been, or at least had use if he had survived the opening scene in Halloween H2, or like some people suggested here, he's just too old to have a big impact like that?
I think there are ways that they could weave him into the drama, weave him and give him something of meaning. But honestly, I'm wondering at that point, are we just stretching out the character for the sake of nostalgia, member berries? You know, having him die in the beginning scene is honestly probably just it's more expedient. Otherwise, you keep him around just to kill him at the end.
Alex agrees with you, man. He says, "Thank you, Tommy." That's what I think. Practically, that's about all they could do. It would establish the stakes and kill an original character. It would create a sense of dread that Michael could win. So, Tommy, in your eagerness to off Loomis off once again, this time in the opening scene, or at least before the opening credits, does Nurse Marion still die? Obviously, there's a connection there. She's kind of like the stand-in for him, I guess, at the beginning of H2O, his caretaker as well. Would she have still been in it, and would you just kill them both off in the opening scene?
I think killing him off in the beginning scene would not be out of question.
Byron, obviously listening to Matt, who would you guys pick to play Dr. Loomis in a future Halloween movie? 4 choices from him is James McAvoy, Ben Kingsley, Hugo Weaving, Gary Oldman. So I think realistically you might be able to convince one of those 4 to do the role, and that'd be Ben Kingsley, and I'd be open to see his interpretation of the role. I don't think James McAvoy fits. I definitely don't think Hugo Weaving fits. And Gary Oldman would be my first pick. I just don't think you could ever convince him to sign on to do Halloween. So, but Oldman would be fantastic. But I think you'd be looking at much deeper takes than that. You'd be going and looking at a lot of TV actors and see who could transfer over to a movie. And Byron, this isn't a question that we can answer on this video, but I'll tell you what, and I'm going to write it down. In fact, I'm going to write it down right now. 1 second. We're going to make a video out of your question. Your question's going to get its own video. It might not be expressed that way, but we're definitely going to do a future video on who we would pick to play specifically Donald Pleasance's version of Dr. Loomis today in a Halloween movie. That's an excellent question. I just think if I throw something against the wall hoping it sticks without doing any research, that it's not going to be very interesting or unique.
I'm just going to throw something out there without thinking about it at all. Johnny Depp.
I have to find the right button here. Yeah.
We've been talking about Johnny Depp so much recently. He's someone who comes to mind. It would be a different Loomis.
That ain't it. There we go. John says some of the things Loomis would say about Michael would have came off corny as shit without Donald Pleasance portrayal. He nailed it. Absolutely. Absolutely. I could not agree more, man. That's spot on. Paul Bailey is Fred Krueger. Did that news just drop? Is that news that's dropping as we speak? Or are you just fucking with us? Because in which case you got me.
I'm looking.
Me too. I'm not seeing anything. I'm not seeing anything. Nor would I think that news would break right
now.
What's up, Kevin? How's it going, man? Hopefully all is well, dude. Heath says Ewan McGregor would be a great option for Dr. Loomis. If you would have made that comment to me 5 years ago, maybe a little more than 5 years ago now, I can't remember. I would have probably laughed you out of the building, to be honest. But then I seen Ewan McGregor in Dr. Sleep. And if you could make him look older, which would be a key element to this, depending on where you're continuing from, I would be open to it because I thought Ewan McGregor was fucking phenomenal as Danny in Doctor Sleep. I also love Ewan McGregor, Obi-Wan Kenobi fan. Come on. Kiefer Sutherland as Loomis, probably butchered the spelling. The last name spelling, the first name I'm not so sure about. But yeah, I think it would be really interesting to see who they end up picking. I don't know if we're ever going to see Loomis again on screen. I suspect we will, but I just don't know if it would be a continuation of Donald Pleasance as Loomis. I would be up for it because, like, the one thing that really gets me is when someone puts the performer, the actor, and/or the actress ahead of the character. We're watching the movie most times for the characters or the story. It's the thought of never seeing Princess Leia again because Carrie Fisher has passed, and they don't want to recast or Han Solo or Luke Skywalker or various other Dr. Loomis, and yet Halloween Kills found a way to do it, although they didn't even really use a real actor. I just feel like there's not enough importance put on the characters. Like, yes, the performers bring the character to life 100%, and they deserve the credit. That being said, I still think the characters are more important. They have to be more important for us to feel attached to them, to see I know it's not Donald Pleasance, but hear me out, guys, and just listen to me. I'm going to pitch this for a second. They go back and they do a sequel to Halloween 2. Maybe it's set in 1985. And they cast someone else to play the roles of Laurie and Loomis. Are you in? Because my answer is, if the story is compelling,
yep,
I'm in, as long as they don't completely butcher the casting. And I know there will be people that you can't do that. You can't. It's like, yes, you can. You fucking can. Performers pass away all the time. Do you want the IP, the franchise, and the characters to live on? You have to be open to other people portraying those characters. Mark Hamill has had a complete 180 and thinks, yes, someone else should definitely play Luke Skywalker. That's where he is. So the idea that someone else can't play Donald Pleasance, is he going to have the same impact or play Dr. Loomis? Is he going to have the same impact as Donald Pleasance? Probably not. But don't rule it out, because someone could go out there and get the performance of a lifetime. People laughed at the idea of Joaquin Phoenix playing Joker. They did. They couldn't see it. Guess what? The film is phenomenal, and he's in basically every frame of that movie. He's great. People laughed at the idea of Heath Ledger playing the Joker. Guess what? Arguably the most memorable one we've ever gotten. Let's be open to other performers playing characters from stories we already know. I do think there's the possibility we get something like that. I also think there's the possibility that a lot of people, the second someone's cast that they don't like or can't picture, that they're just, fuck it, we're done. We're moving on. Tommy, what about you? Could you see not just someone else playing a version of Dr. Loomis, but someone else continuing on from Donald Pleasance's Dr. Loomis? I'm not asking you to name the guy, but do you think they could do it and have the fan base still accept it?
I think it's going to be something that would divide the fan base, because that happens. That's unavoidable in my mind. But I do feel that they could definitely pull it off, and that they could gather viewers. I mean, you mentioned Dr. Sleep earlier. That movie in itself is I haven't seen it personally. I need to see it one of these days. But from everything I've heard, that movie is an example of how you can continue something years later, with different perspective, different people, whatever. So yeah, I think it's definitely something that they could pull off. It's just people got to go in and recognize that this is not the 80s. This was not made right after Halloween 2. This is made when it was made. It's going to look newer. It's going to have marks of a newer movie. They could also de-age it and make it look like it's in the 80s and do what they got to do to make it have an 80s charm. But it is not going to be a film from the 1980s. So I think whenever we get something like this, we just have to adjust our expectations and, go along accordingly. Otherwise, I do fall in line with you as for performances.
I think I think that period piece would be fantastic. As I've stated before on the stream, period piece is a very expensive thing to do nowadays. If you want it to look and believe like it's, I'm just going to throw a year out there. 1963 was just brought up in the chat, and we're going to address it. To make your whole movie feel like 1963 or 1985 or 1981 or 1979 is not a cheap thing to do. It's a very hard thing to do nowadays. So you got to have something in place that makes sense and also doesn't look cheap. Because if it looks cheap, you can be taken out of the period piece, very, very easily, and you don't want that. You mentioned Dr. Sleep. It's a great example. I love the director's cut of that movie. In my opinion, the director's cut of that movie is one of the best horror sequels ever made, period. For me, again, it's subjective. Kevin says, I don't know what role, but Harry Melling in a Halloween film, I wouldn't mind. The October says, before 1963, in your own mind, when you imagine it, do you think child Michael Myers talked and reacted and behaved like normal, or was he always silent / evil before he was 6 years old? So that's the thing, right? John Carpenter gave the impression he was just a normal boy who one day did that, just out of the blue, and that's what made it creepy. But when you watch Halloween 2018, Halloween Kills, Halloween Ends, specifically Halloween Kills during the flashback scene, they give you the idea he was always like that, which to me is far less interesting. They used to say he used to just look out his window, and this is prior to him killing Judith. And that is one of the things in Kills that I didn't like at all, to be honest, because I like the idea that, hey, Michael Myers was this innocent kid who, is 6 years old. He's living life, like any 6-year-old should. And then one day, for whatever reason, the shape is born, basically. And do we see that reason on screen in a future version? I don't know. I also think it depends how you handle it. But I like the idea of he was normal. I don't like the idea he was always like this. That takes away from the mystique a little bit, in my opinion. That's just me. What about you, dude? Do you, because again, Kills gives the idea he was always like that, but John Carpenter's always given the idea it was just one day kind of happened.
I don't know, dude. I don't know.
Kevin says, I think a sudden change out of nowhere is really unsettling. Like it's always been there, but something for whatever reason unleashed it. I also think it depends how you're approaching it. Like if you look at the Thorn movies, it's kind of implied that, maybe Wynn had something to do with Michael back there the same way Wynn was trying to have something to do with Daddy. In Halloween 6. That's what I pictured. Michael's basically getting Palpatined in the Halloween universe at 6 years old, right? So, daddy, like I hate the idea that he was just born that way. I don't like that. But I think it's one of the reasons I always like the Thorne storyline is, yeah, this fucked up, sadistic, satanic individual fucking basically kidnapped and lured this little boy in and created this monster. That to me was a compelling story that we never got an end to. But I know that's not for everybody. I totally get it. Matt Whitfield fell in the toilet. Confirmed right here. That's a scoop.
I believe it.
Byron says, I'm always open to new ideas, but it's all about the execution. I totally agree, man. Would you guys ever do a stream about JLC's backstage antics? I mean, we've talked about them on several streams here. Like, look, Jamie Lee Curtis is a incredible actress who has a resume that speaks for herself. I think you just need to understand that to be successful in the movie industry, most of these people have some level of an ego. That's just fact. Whether it's an athlete, a movie star, a professional wrestler, to gain the levels of success that they have, they more than likely have an ego, right? We've heard about the stuff with Halloween Ends. There's been stuff about Halloween H20 that she's admitted to. She's already admitted to squashing several ideas for Halloween Ends. That happened. Go check out the post-Halloween Ends release media circuit. Do it, please. And I think we're going to find out a little more details in this book, but I don't think it'll be like an expose on Jamie Lee Curtis is the reason for this or anything like that. I think she's just very particular about what she's involved in. If she doesn't have it exactly the way she wants it, she's not going to do it. And I might not like it, right? But she does have that power. So it's one of the reasons why I'm looking forward to a movie without her, frankly. What's going on, bud? Hopefully you're well, dude. We got to get together and do something sometime soon. He loves some Halloween H20. Kevin says the scene in Rob Zombie's Halloween in Smith's Grill right after he kills the nurse and his mask gets ripped off. The shot of Michael screaming rabidly as the sirens blares gives me chills. Yeah, you know, for that version of Michael, for me, that works. They set him up with Dag really well in the beginning of that film. I just don't think that works at all for the Michael from the 1, 2, 4, 5, 6 timeline, or even the 1, 2 H20 Resurrection timeline. JT says since Harnett is back in Hollywood, have him and Molly back in Halloween. Well, I can tell you right now, if Josh Harnett has in fact secured the role as Dr. Doom in the MCU, Halloween ain't happening anytime soon. I can tell you that much. That's a role that he's getting paid a lot of money to do across multiple films that will include stuff like the Avengers and Fantastic Four. So I hope it's Harnett, though. I don't know if Harnett gets enough credit for how good of an actor he is. Greg Williams says, I would love to see a movie version of the comic where Michael is a young kid in Smith's Grove. That could be the new start. Well, you know what? We have a channel that's launching here in probably a couple weeks' time called The Legacy of Halloween, where you're going to be able to find 5 to 20-minute videos that are mostly lore videos, some what if videos, a lot of making of the movies, like how did Halloween 4 come to be and what did it look like prior to that. If you're a Halloween fan, that's going to be a channel that is dedicated strictly to Halloween, and eventually we might get to live streaming over there, but we're going to stick to live streaming here for now. But there'll be a bunch of content going over there. Definitely check it out. The Legacy of Halloween. It's coming very, very soon. That, though, is going to do it for this episode of Fandom Empire Live. Mr. Whitfield, you multitask. I tried not to put too much on you guys. The chat really kind of carried the show tonight, so big appreciation to thanks to the YouTube chat and the Facebook group, The Legacy of Halloween. If you haven't yet, like, comment, subscribe. If you want to support the channel on any level, that's all you got to do. Like, comment, subscribe, slash that notification bell. long as you don't have a dragon that's going to go burn down an entire city for slashing the bell. And patreon.com/Fandom Empire if you want to financially support the channel and what we got going on. It'd be appreciated. We have 3 great sponsors right now. Jesse from Storytime Spectacular, Jason Knight from Backtrack Cinema. Big thanks to those guys that honestly, without their support and the support of the patrons, I wouldn't have the time that I'm granted to still be able to, oh my God, apologies, to come on here and do this. So honestly, from the bottom of all of our hearts, thank you very much. And also, Colleague Nation, Mr. Ryan Yount, who also makes this possible. Tommy, where can everybody find you at, man? Other than trying to kill off Dr. Loomis in the Halloween movie.
My ass on my couch in about 2-3 minutes watching Ahsoka.
Agreed. I'm right there with you. Mr. Whitfield, what do you got going on, man? Hopefully your draft's going well, and we're going to have to take Tommy out back or something, if you know what I mean, for his trying to kill off Loomis thing here. Yeah, that fucking guy.
What do you want the man to do? Live forever?
Yes.
Okay, well, good luck with that.
Good night, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you next time. Ciao. I said ciao, damn it.
Ciao.
Ciao.